The first moment the general's voice echoed across the command room, the air snapped. He demanded her call sign. She stood silent. A human hush fell over hardened officers and aides alike. In that silence, 1,000 judgments, contempt, curiosity, fear stirred behind their eyes. When she finally spoke, one single name escaped her lips. Specter Six. The room froze. Challenged authority, yet answered with a claim of power. They had convened to denounce her, to marginalize her, to erase her reputation. The general, uniform crisp, metals precise, had leaned forward, red-faced, demanding a name. She had come, specter in fatigues, eyes steady, knowing exactly how this might begin. And now, the room hung on that single utterance, suspending verdict behind expectation. Long before that moment, she had learned silence. She had learned what the absence of voice could say louder than any shout. She had carried regret, carried flesh pain, carried memory. She had seen comrades light up in death, held shattered bones in her hands, felt the heat of mortal pressure. She knew how fragile the body was, how louder the heart could pound when fear stung your throat. Years earlier, she had been 25 and full of conviction. She had joined the service with a promise: protect those who could not protect themselves. In uniform, she stood under foreign suns. Her distant gunfire, like a morning bell, slept under predator skies. When she lost Marcus, the man who'd laughed hardest in the barracks, she learned grief in 3 dimensions. The taste in her throat, the ache in her ribs, the phantom handshake she could no longer feel. She vowed always to carry him in memory. She had carried scars. Under her uniform, in her dreams, in the heaviness of her sleep. Her hands were steady now, her eyes cold with resolve. Now she stood before voices that meant to humiliate. Voices wielding protocol and power, intending to strip her of agency. They insisted she state her call sign, submit to bureaucracy, acknowledge invisible limits. They believed silence meant weakness. She believed silence could be command. They leaned forward. They expected her to shrink. They demanded compliance. As she hesitated, they murmured. Aides glanced sideways. One colonel tapped his pen. A major's lips twisted. All assumed she would fold, but she did not. The quiet in the room weighed heavy. She inhaled the recycled air, smelled Those who sat before her, they thought authority meant volume, meant domination. They thought a name was mere formality. They did not sense that in her silence lived dignity. They did not know she had networks. Those she had saved whispered loyalty, in voices too low for the powerful to heed. They did not know the phone line she kept open, the eyes she had in every branch, the respect she had built in hidden halls. She sensed their tension, their discomfort. Each second her silence pressed judgment back upon them. She watched hearts pound. She watched one aide's fingers tighten on his folder. She watched the general's jaw clench. Silence became a spotlight. Then she said Specter Six. No preamble, no hesitation. The single name hung like a verdict. She owned it. The room fractured. Some recoiled. Others leaned in, shock in their eyes. The powerful stuttered. The general's face drained. He had demanded but now conceded. That name carried weight they could not dismiss. In the hush that followed, a man at the far table cleared his throat. He said she would explain. She nodded once quietly. She explained in calm voice how protocol had no claim over honor. She outlined missions she led where others died. She recounted how in silent operatives, in covert rescues, in border conflicts, lives were saved. She spoke of faces in hospitals, sobbing mothers, children who grew because she acted. Each statement was quiet but resonant. The weight of service folded into every syllable. She spoke of duty not as obedience but as moral demand. She said, sometimes silence is shield. Sometimes dignity is not what you say, but what you refuse to surrender. The room felt heavy with her truth. The general, hands clenched at the edge of his desk, realized that power could not simply dismiss what courage had earned. Dark alliances had prepared to humiliate her, to reduce her. But by purposely refusing their script, by refusing to play their game, she shifted power. Their strength lay in protocol, hers lay in principle. Their questions assumed fear, she radiated calm. Their demand for a name was their attempt at control. Her answer recalibrated who held control. In one motion she unmasked their inferiority. Emotion came then, unbidden. A colonel cleared his throat, eyes moist. A major's hand trembled. A junior officer quietly whispered his admiration. Outside the room, corridors stiffened with rumors. Within, the oppressive air lightened. The walls could not contain what she had claimed. Later that day, outside the building, word spread. In barracks and mess halls, their voices echoed. Specter Six. They whispered about her in admiration. A woman who refused to bend. A soldier who claimed power in silence. A name now carried in respect, not ridicule. She left the conference room quietly, shoulders squared. She did not look for applause. She did not pause for photographers. But in corridors, officers stopped and saluted. Some nodded. Co-workers touched her shoulder. She did not flinch. She walked on. In the Capitol, in the press rooms, diplomats and military brass wrestled. How to respond to a name that demanded respect. Some released statements of reform. Others claimed protocol must hold. But public opinion shifted. People spoke of dignity, of valor, of her claim to space. The powerful spoke loudly, but her silence had spoken deeper. At a gala months later, medals hung on her chest. The general, now quieter, addressed the assembly. He spoke of heroes who came from silence, who carried scars, who asked nothing but carried burdens. He said the name Specter Six would not be whispered as a title of fear, but of fidelity. The room stood, not by command, but by conviction. In the hush that followed, she stepped forward. Her eyes traced faces, families, fallen soldier parents, young cadets. She said, "Respect is owed to those who give life, even when they ask no thanks. Honor is not given, it is recognized." The applause broke like a dawn. In the months that followed, her story became legend in battalions. A lieutenant embroidered Specter Six on his sleeve. A nurse whispered it to patients. In overseas posts, soldiers passed it as code. They quoted, "Silence is shield, dignity is unsurrendered." They said, "Not all heroes stand in the light, some rule the darkness." Back in her quarters, she touched Marcus's photo. She pressed fingertips to the glass and said nothing aloud. But inside, she thanked him. She carried on. She would never court praise. She would allow only truth's reward. And now, as you watch this, wherever you are, ask yourself, whose voice have you silenced? Whose dignity do you ignore? Silent strength is still strength. Sometimes the mightiest warriors speak not to be heard, but so their silence cannot be dismissed. If you believe in respectful heroes, share this story. Comment where you watched. Let the name Specter Six echo beyond these walls. Subscribe, and let us bring light to unseen valor.